They've got three things they have to achieve here in Doha over the next 2 weeks. First of all, they've got to adopt a ratifiable amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, establishing a binding second commitment period. That, of course, is for only those countries that have announced they're going to stay in Kyoto, primarily Europe, Australia, Norway, and Switzerland. The United States never was in Kyoto. Japan, Russia, Canada, and now New Zealand have announced they're not going to participate in Kyoto after the end of this year. So that's job one.
So these UN peeps have 2 weeks to decide three things. They got to agree not to pollute heaps, then they got to promise they mean it, and then they got to decide how long this is all going to last. But this is only for like super rich countries who pollute heaps and are like super rich and agreed to, agree. And that doesn't include the US because they are massive douchebags. And it doesn't include all those others because now they are of the, douchebag variety.
Job two is to continue the negotiations launched in Durban last year towards a more comprehensive binding treaty post-2020 that would include the US, China, India, Brazil, and other countries that don't have binding commitments under Kyoto. That's not a high drama event here. They're likely to reach agreement on that and to set up a work plan for next year that keeps that process moving forward.
We had some fun chats in South Africa last year where like everyone, even the douchebags and the really small countries, agreed to cut down pollutions by 2020 in this thing called the Durban Platform.
The third stream is to conclude the negotiations launched 5 years ago in Bali, Indonesia, on the so-called Bali Action Plan. The most controversial issue there is finance for developing countries. There was a commitment by President Obama and other world leaders in Copenhagen 3 years ago to ramp up climate finance support for developing country actions on rainforest conservation, mitigation of emissions, and adapting to the impacts of climate change from about $10 billion a year, where it's been for the last 3 years, towards $100 billion a year by 2020. Developing countries want to see some assurances from developed countries that they remain committed to that pledge and are going to put funds on the table once the current short-term financial pledges run out at the end of this year.
This year we need to make sure everyone really meant it and wasn't just, lying, because they do that. You don't even know, dude. Anyway, that's like pretty much guaranteed to happen. No one's going to spaz about that. Well, probs. So there are poor countries who are totally getting screwed by climate change, and rich countries are all like, we'll give you the money and the help. And the poor countries are like, yay! And then the rich countries are like, we'll start giving you money in 2009. Except that was 3 years ago and poor countries aren't getting any real help yet. The rich countries are kind of skipped out on the bill and the poor ones are ready to hold them up to it. That's all happening this year.